Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Pood. A little bit late this week. You know how we like to do things around here. Stay on schedule, right? You
Sorry
know,
of me.
100% of the time on time, right? Maybe not quite. But we had a big week this last weekend here. We had CDL champs, baby. We had obviously challenger champs, the more important of the two. And then we had the CDL champs as well. Big one between both of those. Shout out New York. I mean, just, hey, two people getting the new highest KDs of all time in COD champs on one team. Kind of a flex, not going to lie. But the boys are all here. We got Matty Ice producing. We got Dapper. We got myself, CNK. We got Jake. We got Jims. We got the boys.
We absolutely do. We got a lot to talk about today. We don't have a lot of time. We're going to have to cut this one short because we are starting the CRL stream directly after this podcast. So if you watch this podcast, don't go anywhere because we got some great matches coming up right afterward. But yeah, I mean, we have our very own Rec League member, Jims, who was at Champs. So we're going to have a lot to talk about from not only our perspective, me, Dapper, and CNK obviously being at home, but we also get the live perspective from Jims. I feel like it's going to be a great episode.
Oh, it should be a good time.
Sure.
I mean, hey, all of our teams performed absolutely fantastic. You know what I'm saying? Getting out there, winning champs like we all expected, right? Shout out us for being the best. But I mean, speaking of which, I mean, let's just look at this bracket, boys. Let's pull that bracket up, Matty. Yes, let's take a look at this thing. It did not go well for us, I would say. All of us across the board here really maybe didn't have the best weekend. I mean, it started out kind of like, okay, you know, things happen. Things happen, right? Some of our favorite teams won, some of our favorite teams lost, but we had faith in them. And then day two happened.
Yeah.
My pick'ems were in shambles.
Yeah,
Absolute
no, my
shambles.
pick'ems after day one. After day one, I was like, we're doing all right. We're doing all right. Day two happened, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Did not go well. But
I did not have faith in Ultra to do that well. I didn't think they were going to have the ice.
it was only like I felt like that team was either gonna like do good or do bad. Like there really was no in between of like, oh, they'll go like T6, T4. I thought they were either gonna like go out and win or like literally just like somehow T8 just get destroyed. That's really what I thought they were gonna do. And they came out kind of hot, did a good job, and then they just had nothing in finals. Literally nothing. They literally couldn't shoot.
No,
was a good time.
that was the most boring finals I've ever watched in my life.
couldn't even
of,
watch
of
it.
any esport.
I
It was
wasn't
the
even
most
home.
boring.
And I'm not even upset that I didn't see it. That's like the only champs finals I'm like upset. I'm not upset at all that I missed it. Like not even a little bit. I
You
looked at the
shouldn't be,
stats afterwards and I
'cause
was like, oh, okay, cool. Good for them.
literally from like the start of map 1, you could tell how this series was gonna go. Like on that Hydro hardpoint, like Toronto couldn't buy a kill. Like they didn't even know how to shoot their guns. I didn't even think their monitors were on. Like what were they doing?
I have no idea, bro. It's insane. I mean, boys, I mean, just looking at this bracket though. I mean, Thursday you start out FaZe winning. I think no one's surprised with how Seattle was playing like the entirety of the second half of the season. Like I think everyone expected it to be a 3-0, 3-1, right? Like just easy win, no problems, whatever. What are you gonna do? That second match, like Ultra versus Thieves, I think was like, especially like between us, was definitely like I feel like we were pretty back and forth, right? Like
Yeah.
for the most part.
That was no doubt the match that everyone thought was going to be the closest of the entire,
Yeah.
probably maybe of the entire weekend. Was that first round matchup?
I mean, definitely ended up being one of the closest matches of the
Yeah,
entire weekend.
absolutely.
For sure. Surprisingly. Well, not surprisingly, I guess, but I thought we'd get a couple more at least. But
I
yeah,
mean,
no,
realistically, if you look at the bracket, like everything sort of went to plan. Like everything kind of happened that you would have expected to happen. I would say like the few maybe like back and forth matches you could have looked at was everybody was looking at that Ultra Thieves game as like, okay, so this is kind of a coin flip here. One team might come out on top. Obviously, Ultra come out with that Game 5 victory. But I think the few matches that were kind of like head scratchers were like Surge beating LAT and Surge beating Optic. I feel like those were like whoa, like didn't really expect that. Like Surge came out hot this weekend.
yeah, I mean, Surge straight up nuked the bracket by doing that, in my opinion. I mean, it's straight up just put, oh man. I know like when Thieves went to losers, everyone just kind of expected it to be like a pretty, not necessarily quick, because Seattle did look somewhat competitive against, I say somewhat, they looked pretty competitive against FaZe. To the point where it's like, oh, okay, like this team is going to play different this weekend. But I definitely did not expect Thieves to just like not win. Like in general, I thought maybe it'd be close. I completely unexpected for me. Them beating Optic the way they did was also a little sad. Not gonna lie.
Like,
Saturday was a rough
didn't
day. But of
expect.
course.
I didn't expect Seattle to. I expected Seattle to get T8, but I didn't expect them to completely roll over and die. I definitely expected them to have a little bit of, I guess, a little bit of fight in them. Like, it is champs. That team has a lot of potential. I mean, in Vanguard, a major winning team. They were one hipfire shotgun Vaz away from a T3 placement at, what was it, Major 3, I think. The teams had potential all year. Accuracy and Mac absolutely showed up. So props to them
True.
for making a fantastic last stand at what is more than 99.99% likely going to be their last event together as a team. Who knows? Who knows where those players are going to go? But I'm happy Surge didn't just roll over and die at Champs and gave everybody a show, beating two of the teams that were in the top 5 favorites to win it.
They didn't have the easiest bracket either. I mean, they played 3 teams this event, and it was FaZe, LAT, and Optic. I mean, they took 2 of those matches home, and it's like, okay, like, you're not upset by that by any means. Like, they didn't get, like, a Boston matchup or a Rocker matchup. It's like, no, they played the cream of the crop, and they placed top 4. So shout out to them. They absolutely showed up this weekend, and they most definitely surprised a lot of people. Like you said, I think Lamar definitely played solid, but I think the one player that everybody was kind of talking about being that difference maker was Mac, and you love to see that from him because he really was struggling for like the majority of the season. So definitely a nice cherry on top of the end of the season for Mac, no doubt about it, because a lot of people were shedding some bad light on the way Mac was playing, and maybe rightfully so.
I will say Mackenzie definitely was melting. It was happening. That boy
I
was,
mean, he had
shooting.
he had some very unfortunate moments this season.
That happens. That happens.
For example, I think there was a online qualifier that if they would have won it, they would have made winner's bracket. But he had the unfortunate cruise missile for that double team kill. I'm not sure if you guys remember that.
Yeah, I remember that. That was on the El Bagro, right? That was
Yeah.
Man, that was like the start of the downfall of the team, wasn't it?
It was right. I think it
That was
was
like
right
right
after
downfall
the
for Seattle kind of started, right?
yeah, because I think it started with like the optic rumors.
Yeah,
And
but
they got shut down. Then this Predator missile happened, and then they kind of went on the streak of like not winning any LAN matches for the entire year aside from Major 1. And they come here and they beat LAT and then Optic. Like, I mean, they did FaZe a favor.
I mean, they played good against
mean,
FaZe as well. Like, in fairness, like they all around played a pretty good tournament. Like as a whole, like yeah, they won like 8 out of 12 possible maps that they played or whatever. Or sorry, not played, but 12 possible maps.
They played pretty bad against FaZe
in their series. So. What were you gonna say, Dapper?
Against FaZe, that was a pretty easy series.
I mean,
it happens.
I think this either series against FaZe was pretty winnable for them. They put up a fight. I'm happy for them. How about we talk about Breach and Snoopy specifically?
And Kremp, please.
Man, Kremp, in a bad way for Kremp.
Oh, come on. Not in a bad way.
Yeah.
There was a couple of games there where Kremp was looking pretty good though. With
Rocker, he was trying.
Yeah. I the thing with Breach is like I think everyone kind of expected because of like the new team and whatever, like everything like that, they were just gonna come out probably get like maybe not necessarily 3-0'd by Optic, but like beat up pretty bad by Optic and then get sent to losers, and then depending on who they played, which ended up being Rocker, would either be like an instant L or like they have a chance at a win. And they kind of came out, they made the Optic series fairly interesting. And then obviously lost, but then playing against Rocker, I tell you what, that Breach team, like especially like between not only just the Rocker series, but the FaZe series, like out of nowhere, they just like turned up after map 1. Well, it was after map 2, right? Like going into that control, they just started destroying FaZe. It was insane.
Yeah, I mean, they almost sent that to a map 5, and in my opinion, once you get to that map 5, it's really anybody's game. Like even if you're playing FaZe, who's the best S&D team in MW2, or was, I guess, because the season's over. But once you get to that map 5, like that's the hard part. Like maybe it's hard to take down FaZe because they have so many like reps in these high stress situations. But I mean, we've seen FaZe kind of break down in the past in these sort of situations. So if they took it to game 5, anything could have happened. I feel like that's kind of the same sentiment that people were holding with that Optic versus Subliners game. I feel like realistically those went, kind of similar in a way. We get to that 2-1 point, that game 4 of the series, and one team kind of throws a hard point, point, and if they had won that, that could have broken open the whole bracket, a bracket buster, you would say.
So when it comes down to FaZe and Breach, if that would have went map 5, I had full faith in FaZe to just beat the brakes off of Breach.
Yeah, we
Because
know you did.
Breach's S&D level is not on par with FaZe whatsoever. But when it comes to New York, like
Anything
it's
happen.
either we would have taken it in 4 or we were gone. There's no chance we were beating.
I don't want to hear this propaganda from you, Dapper.
Surge was the worst S&D team in the league this year, and I don't think lost an S&D this entire tournament.
That's what you got to do, baby.
They were ridiculous. They beat Optic. What was it? I think 12-3 round count, and the two S&Ds that they played during their series, they beat FaZe and Search.
Something like that.
They were crazy. They were crazy in Search. So you can't. I don't feel like you can say that FaZe would have beat the brakes off of them in map 5. Like, it's champs. Literally anything can happen.
Well, I'll talk about Breach, not Surge.
Yeah, I know. I know what you're talking about.
And but since it's champs,
you got Snoopy. You got Snoopy, who was just popping off the entire weekend. He probably solidified himself on a CDL roster next year, at least as a sub. Yeah,
I imagine there's only pretty much everyone. The rumors right now are like they're going to keep 2 players, and it's going to be Snoopy and Big Wake.
Yeah, I don't remember who said it, but someone had said that Snoopy was already before champs was even locked into.
He locked
into
a 1+1 already.
Yeah.
So Jacob Hill reported that, I think.
Who knows who they keep? I don't know if Kremp was good enough to consider keeping.
I think they'll try it, unless they can go and get like a star-studded, and unless they can get a star-studded like sub. I think
they need someone on that team to teach them how to play the game.
I think not all of us agree, but I know Jims, you and I agree for sure that like Big Wake is like the guy they got to look at getting rid of. Like he's kind of been an issue since he's been on this team.
I feel like
obviously he puts up stats. Like we all got to admit, he puts up stats, but he literally doesn't bring anything else to the table, and it has been hurting this team. They're going to
keep Snoopy, but I have no idea how you fix that roster with the amount of iterations that they went through this entire year. I don't know how you fix it.
You bring in Clayster, and you bring in another young gun to replace Kremp, and you just go ham.
Yeah, I feel like, in my opinion, you could do kind of what CNK just said right there. I feel like you keep the core 3, that Beans, Kremp, Snoopy core, and you just bring in a vet AR. You bring in one of those Claysters, one of those accuracies, because they're both on the market. There's definitely some solid veteran AR talent on the board, and I feel like that's the whole talking point about Boston, is it's like they're not a team. They don't work as a team. You can tell from the comms. And I feel like that main AR player is very much so the easiest spot to kind of fill in that veteran leadership void. So it's like if they have for sure options. I wouldn't blame them for maybe dropping Beans, dropping Kremp, but I feel like we all saw flashes of greatness from that core 3 at times, even Wake nonetheless. But like I said before, you got to fill that spot. It's just like, I mean, when you get talent, I mean, in this league, you just cannot afford to give it up by any means.
I remember there was a map for Boston where I think it was more than one map, but as the map was going on, like the core 3, I guess you were talking about of Boston, when it came to Beans, Kremp, and Snoopy, they were all like had super high engagements. They were like even, barely negative, or just barely positive. And then you had Big Wake, and Big Wake was like double positive, but dude was nowhere near the objective. I think it was a hard point. While his teammates had above like 40 seconds each, he had like 1 second. And I remember looking at the chat, and everybody in the chat and people on Twitter were losing their minds. They're like, what is Awakening doing? Like, dude's literally not helping his team at all. All he's doing is padding his stats. So when they look back at these stats, they're like, oh yeah, okay, we're gonna keep him and drop Beans. Like everybody was starting to say that, and it was very obvious. Like, he was just running around and not even bothering with the objective.
No, I always love that tweet from Enable. It's like something along the lines of like, I would hate being on that team, that Breach team, because they're just screaming and screaming their comms. Like, there's zero direction. They're just calming.
I mean, the perfect example of a Dapper set is like when when Breach was playing Optic, like the Albagra Fortress, it was 90-90, and Awakening was 18-3. It's like, I feel like, in my opinion,
Yeah.
that is not okay under any circumstances. Like, there's never a situation where you should be 18-3 and the game should be tied. Like, that's just
That was the map.
impossible, in my opinion.
That was the map I was talking about. I just couldn't remember what it was.
Yeah, I mean,
It's such
that
a
was
weird
bad.
team right now, though, because like
Yeah.
I really do feel like this is a team that can be insanely talented, especially because they've got Snoopy. It feels like they want to win as like an org, like they want to invest money, they want to be
Unlimited
there.
playing potential.
And it's just like this is one of those teams where like you're gonna look at like there's a lot of like unrestricted like AR players. Like you're gonna have an Octane, you're gonna have a Clayster, you're gonna have an Accuracy. I mean, I guess Illy and Dashy technically. I mean, you probably don't want to go with either of those, but still, like technically, like a Dan Ghosty might be available. I don't
That's
know
a
what
good
that
shout.
like. And it sounds like Slasher. Like a couple people are rumoring that there's a chance Slasher gets moved on from FaZe. I highly doubt that, for the record. But you never know. Like Slasher could be someone who could come into this roster and would definitely change this roster. Like he's gonna bring like a lot of discipline to them when it comes to comms, out of game, in game, you name it, like everywhere. And
I would
You're
like
making a good point.
I would like Slasher to stick around for another year.
yeah, I think we can all agree that like Slasher on FaZe is definitely something worthwhile taking another round, unless they find an opportunity to move move away from Slasher. Let Sullivan be a true main AR, bring in Adraza, because he's going to be a free agent. Maybe bring in someone like that to be like a new like actual flex, and let Sullivan run the role that he like practically runs already, that he feels very comfortable in, and just
Yeah.
move on from a Slasher
that's-
in favor of more slaying potential, an even more talented team with a team that already does everything right. Like, you know what I mean? Like they do things right.
Yeah.
They just
The
they
the
just need to
only
get
issue with
more
that team,
structure.
I think, is a little bit more of a flex player. They got Slasher as a main and Cell who plays just as slow.
Yeah.
But but their issue hasn't been. Slasher stinks online. I don't think anyone would disagree with that, really. But that hasn't been their problem all year. He fries on LAN.
He's a dog.
He is
Yeah.
a dog, but I think maybe out of their ARs they need one of them with just a little bit more pace, and that would fix a lot of their issues. But
Yeah,
I don't think that team changes. I don't.
I just don't know if Slasher and Celium really works that well in practice. Like maybe on paper, you're like, wow, that team's probably super good. But I think maybe that was kind of their downfall. You also get a somewhat of an off year from Simp, which is kind of crazy to say because I think he ended the year with like a 1.0 KD across the board. But it's like that's just not what you expect from, the greatest Call of Duty player of all time to some people. But I think I have an opinion on what FaZe is going to do. But I think we save that for some of the roster mania talk. We will get into that very shortly. What's so funny, CNK?
I mean, something I just saw. I don't know. This
Oh,
is
you just saw something funny.
Yeah.
It was really silly.
It was insanely silly.
It was very
Also,
silly.
It was absolutely bonkers how silly it was.
This is not really an important thing. I just wanted to bring it up earlier when we are talking about comms. I can't remember who said it, but one of you guys said Boston comms are just like they're just screaming to scream.
Yep.
I think one of my favorite listen-ins from this entire tournament, yes, was the grand finals map 1. You just hear Kismet going, "Dead!"
The entire crowd was screaming.
There was
it.
beef
The
in that
entire
match,
crowd was
bro,
screaming.
like
It was
crazy.
great.
Oh, there was beef.
Oh, man. Dude, that whole team agreed going into that match, like, dude, we got to put this dude down. We're putting him down. And Scrappy afterwards is like, yeah,
Hey, don't piss off your dog, man.
I think
is Twitter safe
it
now?
was yeah, it was
Poor
kids
guy.
saying it on map 1. You just start hearing it echo throughout the crowd, just dead the entire time. It was great.
Dude, Kismet was that guy is a dog. You know what? I gotta be the first to admit it. I have not the entire season, but like the first 3 quarters of the season, I was definitely on the side of like, yo, maybe Kismet's not the guy here. I was on that.
He was average for a little bit. He
Well,
was after
for me, it was
Major
just
1, he was
like-
average for a while.
all
The
I was
entirety of New
saying-
York was. What
all
they
I
got,
was
I think
saying
they
is
got
just-
8th and 12th.
Like my thing with Kismet was like less of did I think he was bad and more of I just thought he was being super overhyped. That's all. Like, because definitely good. Like, don't get me wrong. It's just everyone was like praising him like he was like a top 4 sub in the game, and it's like, come on now, like, come on, like, they have
Yeah.
Hydra. Like, what are you gonna do? Like,
Yeah,
He's gonna be
Kismet definitely showed all the haters because I think even people were saying it like like after Major 5 or not Major 5, after Major 4, after Major 3, when they were kind of, on that downturn after they got that number 1 spot at that Major 1. It's like, okay, Kiz is kind of one of those players that's like privy to those, stinker maps every once in a while, where I think you even saw at Champs they were playing Toronto. The Kiz goes like 14 and 27 on that Mercado, that map 1, and it's like that's just not something that you can kind of get away with at the highest level. But Kids showed, like, when he's just built differently seemingly, because he comes to finals, drops a 1.52 with an SMG in hand. I mean, that is just unheard of. It's like people are gassing Skies too, and he deserves his praise, 1.51. But when you are dropping a 1.52 in a 5-map series, when your main AR is dropping a 1.51, it's like there is something to be said about that, because that is unbelievable.
Crazy.
That was
insane.
absolutely nuts.
Dude, that team, like, are we ever gonna see like a CDL finals like that for Champs ever again? Like,
No
because
way.
of
It
how
almost happened
competitive the
last year.
CDL is. I mean,
I hope
bro,
not.
dude, 2 people dropped 1.5s, bro.
Like, two
Yeah, that
1.5s
was
is insane.
crazy.
Dude, like the highest KD before that was like a 1.35, and these dudes both came out and got a 1.5, like over a 1.5. Like, that's insane. Like, I don't know if you're gonna see something like that.
Yeah.
Like,
I saw Haggy said this on the flank. It's like, bro, like those first 3 maps, like if that was a 3-map series, like that is the most dominant reverse sweep or not reverse sweep. That's the most dominant sweep in the entire year. If that was a best of 5, it's like map 1, 250 to 66, game 2, 6-1, and control 3-0. It's like if that was a regular match, I mean, that would be just an unbelievable blowout. And it was in a best of 9, and they pulled out the next 2 maps. It's like that was just insane. Like I feel like that's impossible to replicate. Like, we're really not going to see anything like that. And if we do, I mean, I would be surprised.
To be fair, the control was much closer. It ended up being a 3-0, but those rounds were really tight. It just stinks that with the way vetoes went, New York got their 2 of their best maps, map 1 and 2, and Ultra just couldn't regain after that.
I mean, bro,
I just kind of funny. I mean, because the grand finals was on Father's Day, and I'm
bro,
sitting
this is
here.
not happening.
I'm sitting here, right? I'm panicking. Like I'm not gonna be able to finish watching the finals. I had to leave at 5 o'clock, 2 hours after it started. I was able to watch the entire finals, trophy presentation, everything afterwards, and still have 15 minutes left before I had to leave.
Bro, I literally,
that was
I wasn't
something.
even home. I checked at the beginning. I was like, okay, things are kicking off. I watched the first hard point. I was like, okay. And then I checked back 2 hours later. And I was like, it's over? I was like, there's no way, bro. I was like, what happened?
I just want everyone to know the way Champs tickets are sold is it's $40 for the first 3 days and then $40 just for Sunday.
Oh,
All right. So the first
so
3
worth
days have the same value as just Sunday. I just want to put it out there. I got a 5-0 on Sunday, man. Come on.
dude. That
And
stadium was packed though, right?
It's
Jeez.
not like Challengers Champs was any better too. That was also a blowout.
Oh, Mitt
Dude,
was
but
not.
hey, can we just give a big shout out to Challenger Champs though, being on main stage on the main stream, getting over 100K viewers?
That was pretty
That's
awesome.
That's something.
Yes.
That's something right there, boys.
I was really worried they weren't going to open up the doors for people to go watch it because it started at 9:30 Pacific time. But they did, and the arena was packed as well. I think mainly for people that maybe wanted to get in early to get good seats for the grand final, but still the arena was absolutely packed for Challengers Champs as well, which was really cool to see.
Yeah, I kind of want to hear from you, Jims. It's like, what was your Champs experience like? Because, obviously, we kind of went through the whole bracket. We talked about everything we needed to. I want to hear from you, Jims, because, I mean, I got to go last year. I got to go in Cold War. Did not get to go this year. Was it a good venue? How was the experience? Tell me about your Champs weekend, because, I mean, that's a lot of days to be, at a Call of Duty event. You're privy to that, though. You're used to it at this point.
So let's see. I went with my core group was myself, Cookie, and Senor. It was Cookie's first Call of Duty event ever and his first time ever being in Vegas. So being with him and seeing him experience it for the first time was really cool. The venue was it was another basketball arena, just like the Call of Duty events have been the last few years at UCLA or USC, in Southern California and LA. But one thing I love about Champs is that every single day is packed. If you go to some of these homestands, Thursday and then like the early part of Friday are pretty dead because people are like getting off of work and traveling in or just can't make it. But every single day is packed for champs. So crowd is always loud, obviously louder for Optic, but every single match, again, every single match was packed. It was loud. It was fun. Lots of cool things to do out in the venue. Challengers Champs was in a pretty good area. They had like a phase booth and a Boston booth that I think they did meetups at some point throughout the event. The Challengers Trophy was over, or the Champs Trophy was over there by the Challengers venue. They had a lot of different like streaming pods set up throughout the venue as well that you saw a lot of different creators at. The flank was right in the middle of the concourse. Like everybody was just walking straight past them. All the guys from the flank were looking directly at people that were walking past them, which I thought was a little bit odd.
The flank always gets into weird spots.
Yeah. Like I
Boston.
don't understand the decision about that. Like I know Scump might be the priority when you're doing watch parties. He was nowhere to be seen. They had some private suite somewhere they were doing the watch party from. I saw the big guys, Nade, Hex, and all of them go into some suite that was close to where we were sitting. I assume it was there, but yeah, that was a little bit odd for the flank, for sure. I'm trying to think of anything else. I mean, it was just a good event. Good event, good venue. I mean, Vegas is fun. It brings out everybody. Everybody wants to come to Vegas. Met a lot of people that were from out of state or flew in, especially a lot of guys from the CRL. We had the Hawaii guys like Orbit, Raccoon Dog, those guys. They're all brothers, so they flew in together. Got to meet all of them. We had like Toby from Pennsylvania, I think he lives. He was out there, and just a lot of different people. It was a really diverse group of people just from across the U.S., which is cool to see.
I got a big question for you, Chims. This is very important question. So after LA Thieves get knocked out of the bracket by Seattle Surge, did you or did you not chant "FU Draza"? Jims, did you do it?
Oh,
I was
The
not in
silence
the
is
venue. I
deafening.
was not in the venue for that match.
He
okay.
wasn't
What?
there.
Guy was
Good
busy
ass.
taking a nap.
Wait.
Were you in the
Yeah, yeah, tell
casino
me.
witnessing drama?
How did Senor handle
What day was that? They got eliminated Friday.
Saturday, Friday? Which one?
They got
Whatever day
eliminated
2
Friday.
was.
I don't
Thieves were
remember.
eliminated Friday.
Maybe I
with
was in the venue. I don't even remember. It was kind of a blur the first few days. I
can be a blur at
don't really remember which matches I was there for. I know like once Optic got eliminated on Saturday, we got up and went to the Optic match, and then they got eliminated, and that kind of killed the wind in our sails, and we were just in the hotel room for the rest of the day because we were up so early or so late on Friday. So we just went back, took a nap, and we didn't have any desire to go back for the rest of Saturday.
Wow.
So, I also have another question to ask you about your champs experience. How did gambling go?
That's a good
Did you
question.
win anything?
So I don't enjoy gambling that much because I know it's just a money pit. I can't sit down and have a desire to gamble knowing that it's the house's favor. Of course I did put $100 down on blackjack. I lost 70 of it. Played for like 2 hours, and that was really the only night that I played blackjack. Every time we would walk through a casino, Senor would put 20 down on red, and he actually won most of those rolls, which was pretty
No
funny
way.
to see. He did win most of those rolls. I'm pretty sure he came out positive on the weekend, not by much, but he did come out positive on the weekend. Myself and Cookie played in. So the WSOP is coming soon. So a lot of the casinos have these like really low stakes like poker tournaments, like $100 to $200 buy-ins. So on Sunday after the event, myself and Cookie went and played one of those. I'm not that great at poker, so I busted out pretty quick. But Cookie actually ended up winning it. He won the tournament of like I think it was like 110 people or so, and walked away with like
No way.
Oh my! Wait, what?
walked away with like $2,500. Yeah.
What
What?
So that was, I mean, he's really good at poker. He's told me he's spent a lot of money to try and get good at poker, and we went to Caesar's Palace, and he has a couple friends that live here and play poker professionally, and he said, like, if you want the easiest game, go to Caesar's Palace. So we went there, and sure enough, like he took everybody's money.
That's crazy. Good for
So
him.
that was
really
really
nice.
really cool to see. That was a fun night
I would
to
be
watch him
gassed
play.
if that happened around me.
Yeah, I mean, that was a 6-hour tournament for him.
Oh,
He
geez.
won,
He
and
just,
he
like,
just
walked away,
he's like,
came back.
get me out of here. I am done. Like, just sitting in a casino for 6 hours was exhausting for him.
Oh, I bet it would be.
So that was the extent of our gambling. We played blackjack twice and hit the roulette table a couple times, and then the poker tournament. That was it. I lost $170 on the weekend. That's less than I thought I was going to lose. So
Okay.
I'm cool with it.
Well, that's very good. I'm glad to hear
Mhm.
that. We're kind of running out of time here. We got one more topic to talk about because everybody knows competitive Call of Duty. We love our favorite time of the year. It's roster mania. I might like it more than the regular season. I won't lie, everybody, because it gets mixy and it's starting to get spicy already. CNK, I mean, any first thoughts? Because we've seen our fair share of adjustments, and I mean, it's only Wednesday.
Hey, man, I've seen some things that are already making me sad, to be honest. I mean,
Ooh.
the first one obviously being the Draza Envoy optic like rumor that's going on right now. Hey, great. I love Draza as a player. That's great. Envoy, love Envoy as a whole, man. That guy, that's my guy right there. Bring
That
Dylan
guy's
back, baby.
honorary optic.
Bring him back. Anytime you want, you come on over. We put him on Optic Nation if we have to. Got to do what you got to do. Come on, Dan Ghosty, though. I love Dan Ghosty. I want to keep Dan Ghosty. Obviously, Shotzi, got to keep him around, but that's obviously, I mean, he'd be on this form of this team. I like Dashy, too. Got to keep him around, all for it. But, I mean, come on. Dan Ghosty, baby. We got to keep him around. But then the other one's a little bit more spicy that we've been noticing here. There's a little Roomski going around that the Toronto Ultra maybe having a little bit of a cash flow problem and looking to maybe deal Insight in Kleenex, get a little bit of cash in the pocket.
That's a spicy drop. I don't think anybody was ready for.
That's
honestly, they're just clearing way for Scrap Supermax. That's
definitely a part of it.
Here's the thing. This is a team that we know for a fact has been having some budget cuts when it comes to OWL and everything as well. So all I'm saying is there's a good chance this is real. And all I'm saying is, FaZe Insight is sounding pretty good right about now. I'm just saying.
There's also another tweet from CDL Scrum Intel. No, CDO Intel actually. Clayster has announced he'll be an unrestricted free agent on July 2nd.
We already knew that.
So possibly on that day or a couple days afterwards, you might be hearing some rumors somewhere Clayster might land. What do you think Clayster could, like, realistically speaking, where do you think he could go?
Boston.
Yeah, I think Boston. Might be the best place for Clay. I think one place Clay would land that I would not like to see him land is actually FaZe. I do think that Slasher is going to get dropped off FaZe. I do think that is occurring. And I do think that maybe Clay fills in that spot because that was kind of a middle of the year discussion that people were having. Like, oh, maybe they should have picked up Clay over Slasher. But I really don't think that's going to happen. I think most likely based on the Optic Envoy and Optic Draza rumors, if that ends up happening, assuming that Envoy is probably going to get picked up, that means Pred's on the table. I think that's FaZe's first target, personally.
Ooh,
honestly,
how they move that around?
I think Draza's
as a FaZe fan, I would love to see Pred get picked up and sell the main AR and simp the flex.
Yep.
And just have Pred and Beasley on the subs.
It's just so hard though, because there's actually good ARs on the table right now. Like you've got a Draza, you've got an Octane, like Illy, if you want to take a risk on his hand, which I doubt FaZe wants to take that risk. But like I said, you've got Draza, you've got Octane, they're guaranteed available. Clayster, guaranteed available. Accuracy, guaranteed available. Temp, guaranteed available. Dashy, technically guaranteed available. We've had conversations about this before. That like Dashy's kind of like optics guy, so more than likely we'll just re-sign him. But also like even if he got an offer from another team, there's a good chance he would just take the optic offer to stay home with the boys. It's just like that's how he is. He's an optic guy, I think he likes optic a little too much. But Like, there's AR options like up the wazoo right now that are like a top team like FaZe could pick any one of these and none of them would say no because
Yeah,
your chances of winning a world championship would be higher than any other team by a significant margin.
I'm seeing a lot of like people saying that FaZe could pick up Illy. Honestly,
No,
I'm not a
I don't
fan
think.
of that
Well,
at all.
I just think a team like FaZe would never take a risk on his hand. Like as much as Illy is a good player and he probably would come into FaZe and like do good if he stayed healthy all season long. Like I don't think a top 3 team or a top 4 team is going to take a risk on Illy. Unfortunately, I think Illy, the best thing he can do this next season is get on one of those mid-tier teams. Like if Rocker builds another mid-tier squad, that's perfect, right? Because you can still get paid like a good amount of money. Go out there, prove that you're still what everyone thinks you are. Or I guess some people don't think he's that, but like prove you're still like insane, right? And go and get on a top tier team the following season. But the problem is he's going to get signed for a 1+1. So if he plays good, he's just going to be sucked up for 2 years. But
Well, I think in a
if he,
1+1, I'm pretty sure the player can decline that option as well.
is that how it goes?
I
think
think
so.
that's how it goes. Because if you look at the
Looking,
Jacob Hale, spreadsheet with the players that have the 1+1, it says like team option or player moves on, or it says something under that
but
circumstances. So I
that
think it's
means
an
I'm
option for
pretty
both.
sure what that
Teams
means is
can.
that the team can choose though, because like I don't think a player gets an option. Like
Wait,
that's not
click.
typically. Well, because you would think some of these players would have taken that ability to leave though in the past, unless they just started this year. You know what I mean?
I mean, maybe you're right because of like Octane, so you very
Right.
much so might be right.
But there's other players too, like even like a Pred, like
Yes,
yeah, and
indeed.
there's other like there's a lot more. Like even Illy would have been like, yo, like maybe not Illy, I guess, but still. Like
Yeah, I think I mostly think that they're gonna try to pick up Pred specifically because I would be in the same boat as you guys, where it's like, okay, there's a lot of AR talent out there. There's a lot to pick from. There's cream of the crop ARs here on the table. We're talking Octane, Sibilance, Clayster, whoever you want to pick up. There's a lot of options, but with Pred, that's kind of a once in like a decade opportunity because we all know how good Pred is. We all know his ceiling. And they were seemingly open to do this going into this year when Shotzzy was potentially on the table. We've all heard the fact that Shotzzy was thinking about going to FaZe, and I assume if Shotzzy was going to FaZe, I don't think he was going to be the player moving to a flex. I'm pretty sure it was going to be Simp. So if that's the case, then there's definitely a world where FaZe is open to picking up, Sib or Pred or maybe Draws, players like that. Like they are kind of playing both sides of the coin right now, and that really makes their likelihood of being a super team much higher going into next year, in my opinion.
I mean, unlimited options. Like,
and
I wouldn't be surprised if Atlanta FaZe try to go and pick up Sib, because you do got to remember, Sib rode Atlanta FaZe's bench for 2 years.
Yeah, but there was only bad news bears there. Like they literally, like
true.
that was we heard nothing but bad news
was...
every time his name came up. He didn't get a shot on that team. I don't think those players are going to go get a player that they have nothing but bad like memories of. There's no way. A team that good doesn't go get somebody that they're like everything they remember about the player is bad. Everything.
I was like the players, as I'm looking at these contracts, that I would not mind getting. Pred would be one. Sib possibly, because Sib has grown to be a good player. I wouldn't mind getting Clayster. I mean, I wouldn't mind getting any of the LA Thieves players besides Kenny.
You could get Insight too. You could even get Kleenex, realistically.
Insider Kleenex, you know what? I'm fine. I'm fine with that too.
But realistically, you wouldn't want Kleenex for that team. Like
he's happy.
Like the thing is, the hilarious part about what just happened there is you just named like, oh yeah, I'll take either one of the best players of all time, one of the best players currently, one of the other best players currently, or yeah, actually, you know what? That's about everyone I would be happy with. Like, bro, like let me just get any player that's worth almost a supermax, or at one point in time was one of the best players in the history of the game. So those are my options personally. Anything outside of that, I'd honestly be upset.
I think FaZe is going to be the most dangerous team going into next year, just based on their literal options. I mean, if let's say somebody snatches up Pred, they got 2 more players to pick from that are going to be fantastic fits on the squad.
And let's be honest, that's probably going to be the first big move that happens in the offseason. The dominoes will fall after that. Like the Pred situation will happen, and then the rest of the dominoes of the rest, like all of LA Thieves is like being either re-signed or signed to different teams or whatever happens is probably based around if Thieves gets pred, Optic gets pred, FaZe gets pred, like whoever gets pred is going to change completely how everyone else operates their offseason, like completely top to bottom.
I think another big thing to mention is Seattle's GM that built that team with Pred and Sib is now LA Thieves GM.
Very true.
I think that and clearly if he built that Seattle team, they had enough success that I think he's very, you could call him a very, very successful GM. He may bring in some AMs to Thieves. They're clearly squad wiping. They're getting rid of 2 at maybe 3, probably 3 players, potentially all of them. Right? I don't know what kind of offers
potentially
going to get.
I think
yeah,
Thieves wants
potentially, right?
Though.
So like, I mean, they could. He may bring in some nutty AMs. I'm thinking like Abusa. Abusa has to get a roster spot,
gross.
right? Like, and there's other fantastic AMs from the NA scene that should be getting their shot as well.
I'm just gonna say this. I generally believe that Thieves is gonna try to do what they can to keep Draza. Like unless Draza goes to FaZe, I think Draza's gonna be on Thieves. I really do think that because Nadeshot, every second that Nadeshot talks about Draza, it's literally nothing but the best words you could ever ask for. And every single one of his podcasts he done, like he does a podcast called Nadeshot Knows. Every single one of them, he talks about Draza in nothing but a good way, and he doesn't talk about any of the other players.
I think it's going to be a very tumultuous offseason for Thieves. They're very much so like on like the edge of the cliff, and they're trying to like grab as many people they can before they all the dominoes end up falling. Because I feel like for LAT, like we're very much so in a situation here where you could end up next season going into friggin' wherever with a full different roster on the table. You might not see Envoy, Kenny, Draws, or Octane. I feel like the one player that's most likely to stay is probably Kenny, but even so, like it's a dangerous spot to be in. We all know how many people want Octane. I feel like the best case scenario if you're LAT is to kind of replicate what Seattle's been doing in the past couple of years and be able to maybe sneak Pred and Sib, and instead of Accuracy and Mac as your kind of dirty work duo, you got Octane and Kenny, which is not, I would say that's an upgrade in my opinion. And you know both of those players can probably operate that way. I don't think that would be okay. So Intel, Kenny's probably going to be on LAT for 2024. But everybody else, we got no idea.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
not gonna lie,
I'm not
a little faded.
Can we just sit here and just say real quick that like pretty much any intel we're hearing right now is like completely like unconfirmed. Like
I mean, this is
the way too early intel.
Yeah,
right
this is stuff that's like this, like some of this intel, like this intel we're getting from LAT intel right now, like very much so could literally just be some dude who's just like, I like Kenny. And he's just writing this up, and he's trying to be like, and he's gonna say,
I'm just saying,
like,
this is the case. If Elena got Octane, I would be so happy.
The issue with FaZe at the end of the day is always going to be the exact same problem. Like, at what point in time are you either going to move on from Stellium or just put him at main AR? Like, you have to, like, obviously you're not moving on from him. You're not going to move on from one of the best players in the league. But like,
they haven't given him a good AR duo yet. I think if they want to stay the old FaZe route, we got the Tiny Terror SMG duo. It's like, I think Sib is their best bet realistically. Like, I think that's their best bet to I guess Draza. I think Sib. Me personally, I think I'm taking Sib over Draz. Like you said, obviously, they may have problems with that, but whatever. That was years ago at this point. I think, going into this offseason, I think we're seeing a lot of intel, and I think it's because they're scattering like bugs. Every organization is just trying to pick up the pieces, and nobody knows like what's going to happen, and it's getting dangerous out there. We're seeing a lot of moves happen, and if you get caught in the dust, you might end up with a tough roster going into next season, and nobody wants that. We all know how competitive the league is at this point. If you don't got a good roster, it's really hard to kind of crawl your way out of that hole.
Yeah, I mean, I think the last thing we'll like talk about this is like legitimately there is the ability for multiple teams to come out of this as super teams. I mean, you look at a team like New York, like arguably their weakest link all season long was Prisa, and they could like legitimately make a significant upgrade at that position if they wanted to, right? And then you also look at like a team like Thieves, they can make 2 changes, they can make 3 changes, they can make 4 changes, and they legitimately could go get 4 absolute dogs and become a super team. Like all of these, like they're like any like the quote unquote like top 4 or 5 teams could become like almost unstoppable, like what FaZe can be as well, obviously, or will be if they make a change. It's going to be like the craziest offseason ever, but we do got to kind of wrap things up. So I know, Jimothy, I know you wanted to talk about something. What you got going on?
Yeah, really quickly, I can't believe I forgot about this when I was talking about my time at the event. The LAN that we hosted. So we met up at the HyperX Arena at the Luxor Hotel. I think it was about 20 people from the CRL showed up. And we just had a VIP room. We had 8 PCs and we just ran 8s the entire time. And it was a lot of fun. Bunch of drinks, bunch of drinks, bunch of food, and just a lot of laughs and a good time. So a lot of great games. And just want to shout out to everybody that was there. It was a good time.
I'm not gonna lie right now. The last picture where all you guys are sitting in that small room with those computers, that looks like a sauna, man.
It was. It was
looks
definitely
so
a
hot
sauna.
in there.
No one, unless you were playing, no one was sitting in that room because it was very, very warm. Yes.
That's hilarious.
But I
That's
mean,
hilarious.
let's see. Cookie, Toby, all the NM boys, so the Paris Renegades, the Hawaii boys were there. We had a couple new guys brand new to the league that like I just found out about the CRL that weekend or just a few days prior. Were there. Roman
That's awesome.
and Prophecy. If you listen to this, thanks for coming. Appreciate you guys. It was a lot of fun.
It looks like a lot of fun. I mean, those lands are always a great time. But you know, I think we're running out of time here, fellas. I feel like it's about time we maybe put an end to the podcast for tonight because hey, our boy Matty Ice behind production, he's got 3 more hours ahead of him of matches to cast and produce. So we got to give him some time to you know gather himself before he's got to lock in for these banger matches tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we're done. So, boys, I think it's completely done. We had a good job talking here on the Pood, right? All fun and games, but ladies and gentlemen, we got to go. Ladies and
Absolutely.
gentlemen, enjoy your night.
See ya.